Imagine this. You're standing in a room filled with light, sunlight streaming through tall windows, the air humming with the quiet promise of comfort. In your hand, a device glows softly, pulsing with notifications, each one a tiny invitation. You scroll, tap, swipe. The world is at your fingertips. Laughter, outrage, beauty, horror, all compressed into a stream that never ends. You feel connected, informed, alive. Beneath the surface, a strange emptiness gnaws at you, a hunger that grows the more you feed it. Now imagine the room begins to change. The light flickers, the walls close in, the device in your hand grows heavier, its glow more insistent. You try to put it down, but your fingers twitch with anticipation. Your mind races with what you might miss. The comfort you once felt curdles into restlessness. You are free, yet you cannot leave. You are surrounded by abundance, yet you are starving for something you cannot name. This is the paradox of modern life. Never before have you had so much, and yet never before have you felt so compelled to want more. You are told you are the master of your choices, the architect of your destiny, but every day you find yourself pulled by invisible strings toward the next click, the next like, the next purchase, the next fleeting thrill. You are surrounded by pleasures, yet haunted by a sense of lack. You are more connected than ever, yet lonelier than you dare admit. What if the very things that promise to set you free are the same things that bind you? What if the endless buffet of options, the constant stimulation, the relentless pursuit of novelty, what if these are not signs of progress but symptoms of a deeper malaise? What if the world you inhabit, with its dazzling technologies and infinite distractions, is not a code playground but a labyrinth? And what if at the center of this labyrinth there is not a monster but a mirror? Consider the contradiction. You live in an age of unprecedented abundance. Food, information, entertainment, connection. These are no longer scarce, but superabundant. You can summon a meal to your door with a tap, stream any song ever recorded, converse with strangers across the globe, and yet the more you consume, the more you crave. The more you connect, the more isolated you feel. The more you know, the less you understand. Why is it that, in a world designed to fulfill your every desire, you find yourself addicted, not just to substances, but to screens, to validation, to outrage, to the very act of wanting itself? Why do you wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for your phone, scrolling through feeds that leave you empty? Why do you find yourself unable to sit in silence, to be alone with your thoughts, to resist the urge for just one more hit of stimulation? Is it possible that addiction is not a personal failing, but a feature of the world you inhabit? That the systems you trust to serve you are in fact designed to keep you hooked? That the architects of your digital environment understand your mind better than you do and use that knowledge not to liberate you, but to ensnare you? Imagine for a moment that you are not alone in this struggle. That everywhere behind closed doors and glowing screens, millions are fighting the same invisible battle. That the faces you pass on the street, the colleagues you nod to in meetings, the friends you laugh with over dinner, all are haunted by the same restless hunger. That addiction is not the exception, but the rule. What does it mean to be free, in a world that profits from your captivity? What does it mean to choose, when every choice is shaped by forces you cannot see? What does it mean to be human, when your deepest instincts are weaponized against you? You may tell yourself that you are in control, that you can stop anytime you want. But can you? When was the last time you went a day without checking your phone, without seeking validation, without numbing yourself with distraction? When was the last time you sat in stillness, felt the full weight of your own existence, faced the emptiness that lies beneath the noise? There is a tension here, a contradiction at the heart of modern life. You are told to seek happiness, to maximize pleasure, to avoid pain. Yet the more you chase these things, the more elusive they become. The pleasures that once satisfied you now leave you wanting. The distractions that once soothed you now agitate. The freedom you were promised now feels like a cage. What if the problem is not you, but the world you inhabit? What if addiction is not a disease, but a symptom, a signal that something is deeply wrong, not just in your brain, but in your culture, your society, your very way of being? What if the endless pursuit of more is not a path to fulfillment, but a spiral into emptiness. Imagine standing at the edge of a precipice, looking down into the abyss. You feel the pull, the urge to jump, to escape, to lose yourself in oblivion. But you also feel something else, a faint, persistent longing for meaning, for connection, for something real. You sense that there is another way, a path that leads not to addiction, but to freedom. But the way is hidden, obscured by the noise, the distractions, the lies you have been told about what it means to live. What if the answer is not to seek more, but to seek differently? What if the cure for addiction is not abstinence, but awakening? What if the only way out is through a journey into the heart of your own longing, a confrontation with the emptiness you have tried so hard to avoid? You stand at a crossroads. One path leads deeper into the labyrinth, into the endless cycle of craving and consumption. The other leads into the unknown, a place where you must face yourself, your desires, your fears. Which will you choose? The question hangs in the air, heavy and unresolved. You feel its weight in your chest, its echo in your mind. You sense that the answer will not come easily, that it will demand something of you. Courage, honesty, a willingness to see what you have tried not to see. And so you wait. The room grows quiet. The device in your hand dims. For a moment, you are alone with the question, suspended between the world you know and the world that might be. The tension is unbearable, the possibilities infinite. What comes next? The answer lies just beyond the edge of your awareness, waiting to be discovered. But first, you must understand the hidden forces that brought you here, the psychological and philosophical roots of the problem that haunts you, the invisible machinery that shapes your desires, your choices, your very sense of self. Are you ready to look deeper? Are you willing to see what lies beneath the surface? The journey has only just begun. Beneath the surface of your restless craving, a deeper current flows, one that has shaped the human soul for centuries, but which modern life has twisted into something unrecognizable. To see it, you must look past the flickering screens and seductive algorithms, past the endless parade of products and pleasures, and into the shadowy recesses of the mind itself. Imagine peeling back the layers of your own consciousness. What do you find? A tangle of desires, fears, memories, and dreams. Some ancient, some newly minted by the world around you. You are not a blank slate, nor a rational machine. You are a creature of longing, haunted by the specter of meaning, driven by forces you barely understand. Carl Jung once wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. In the age of distraction, this truth has become a silent epidemic. You reach for your phone, not just to connect, but to escape from boredom, from anxiety, from the unsettling silence that reveals the emptiness within. The world offers you 1,000 ways to flee from yourself, and you take them again and again. But why? Why is it so hard to be alone with your own mind? Why does silence feel like a threat and stillness like a punishment? The answer lies in a paradox at the heart of human existence. You are both the seeker and the sought, the question and the answer, the wound and the salve. You crave meaning, yet you fear what you might find if you look too closely. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this clearly. "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how," he wrote. But what happens when the why is lost, when the world offers you endless hows but no reason to choose one over another? You become unmoored, adrift in a sea of possibilities, each one promising fulfillment, but delivering only a deeper sense of lack. Modern life, with its relentless focus on choice and consumption, has severed you from the roots of meaning. You are told that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next achievement, the next experience, but each new acquisition only sharpens the ache of absence. The more you try to fill the void, the larger it grows. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, understood this cycle well. He saw desire as a ceaseless striving, a hunger that can never be satisfied. All striving springs from want or deficiency, from dissatisfaction with one's condition, he wrote. Hence pain is inseparable from all life. In the modern world, this pain is not just tolerated, it is monetized, engineered, and sold back to you in the form of endless distractions. You are not addicted to pleasure, but to relief from pain, from emptiness, from the terror of insignificance. The world offers you 1,000 ways to numb yourself, but none to heal. You become a connoisseur of distraction, a collector of fleeting highs, a refugee from your own soul. Aldous Huxley, in his prophetic vision of a society addicted to comfort and entertainment, warned that men do not learn very much from the lessons of history. In Brave New World, he imagined a world where suffering is banished, but so is meaning. The citizens of his dystopia are happy, but their happiness is shallow, purchased at the cost of their humanity. Is this not the world you now inhabit? A world where every discomfort is medicated, every silence filled, every longing commodified. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist, saw freedom as both a gift and a curse. You are condemned to be free, he said, forced to choose, to create meaning in a world that offers none. But freedom without purpose is a kind of torment. When every path is open, none feels worth taking. You become paralyzed by possibility, addicted to the illusion of choice, unable to commit to anything that might give your life substance. Viktor Frankl, survivor of the concentration camps, found meaning in the midst of unimaginable suffering. He saw that the deepest human need is not pleasure, but purpose. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure, he wrote. In the absence of meaning, addiction becomes inevitable, a desperate attempt to fill the void with anything, no matter how fleeting. But the roots of addiction go deeper still. They are woven into the fabric of your identity, shaped by forces you cannot see. From childhood, you are taught to seek approval, to measure your worth by external standards, to fear rejection and crave belonging. The world tells you who you are, what you should want, how you should feel. You internalize these messages until your own desires are indistinguishable from the voices that surround you. You become a stranger to yourself, living a life that is not your own. You chase after goals you did not choose, pursue pleasures that leave you empty, adopt beliefs that do not fit. The more you try to become what the world wants, the further you drift from who you truly are. This is the hidden machinery of addiction, not just a chemical imbalance, but a spiritual crisis. You are not just hooked on substances or screens, but on the very act of escaping yourself. You are addicted to forgetting, to losing yourself in the noise, to avoiding the pain of being alive. And yet, beneath the surface, something in you resists. A faint voice calls out, urging you to remember, to return, to reclaim what has been lost. You sense that there is another way, a path that leads not to numbness but to awakening. But the way is hard, and the world conspires to keep you asleep. The tension grows. You feel it in your bones, in the restless ache that will not let you rest. You sense that the problem is not just personal but collective, a sickness of the soul that afflicts not just individuals but entire societies. You see it in the faces of strangers, in the hollow eyes of those who have everything, yet feel nothing. What are the consequences of this hidden epidemic? How does it shape the world you live in, the choices you make, the person you become? The answers lie just beyond your grasp, waiting to be uncovered. Are you ready to see what happens when addiction becomes the air you breathe, the water you swim in, the very fabric of reality itself? The unseen consequences await, lurking in the shadows, shaping your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the world you inhabit is not what it seems. The familiar routines, checking your phone, sipping your coffee, scrolling through endless feeds, suddenly feel strange, as if you are watching yourself from a distance. You notice the subtle tremor in your hands when you reach for your device, the flicker of anxiety when the notifications are silent, the hollow satisfaction after another hour lost to distraction. You begin to see the invisible web that binds you, the silent architecture of addiction woven into every corner of your life. But the consequences of this hidden force are not confined to your private moments of weakness. They seep into the fabric of society, shaping the way you think, feel, and relate to others. You start to notice how conversations have become fragmented, how attention is a currency in short supply, how genuine connection is replaced by curated personas and performative gestures. The world is louder than ever, yet the silence between people grows deeper. Cognitive biases, once evolutionary tools for survival, have become the levers by which you are manipulated. The variable reward systems that once kept your ancestors alert to danger now keep you hooked on social media, gambling apps, and endless streams of content. The dopamine rush that once signaled a successful hunt now rewards you for every like, every retweet, every fleeting moment of digital validation. You are not just a consumer, you are the product, your attention bought and sold in a marketplace you cannot see. Neurological insights reveal the depth of your predicament. The brain, that miraculous organ sculpted by millennia of evolution, is ill-equipped for the onslaught of modern stimuli. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for self-control and long-term planning, is overwhelmed by the limbic system's demand for instant gratification. The more you indulge, the more your neural pathways are rewired, making it harder to resist the next temptation. Addiction is not a moral failing, but a biological inevitability in a world designed to exploit your weaknesses. Cultural conditioning amplifies the problem. From an early age, you are taught to seek pleasure and avoid pain, to measure your worth by external achievements, to fear missing out on the latest trend or experience. The stories you are told by advertisers, influencers, even your own peers, reinforce the idea that happiness is just one purchase, one click, one experience away. You internalize these narratives until your own desires are indistinguishable from the voices that surround you. The consequences are everywhere, but they are easy to miss. You see them in the rise of anxiety and depression, in the epidemic of loneliness that sweeps through even the most connected societies. You see them in the breakdown of attention, the inability to focus on a single task, the constant need for stimulation. You see them in the erosion of empathy. As people become avatars, arguments become battles, and nuance is lost in the noise. But the most insidious consequence is the way addiction shapes your sense of self. You begin to define yourself by your cravings, your habits, your compulsions. You become a collection of appetites, a bundle of needs, a consumer in search of the next fix. The deeper you fall into the cycle, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before the world taught you to want. You start to notice the subtle ways addiction infiltrates your relationships. Conversations become transactional. Moments of silence are filled with the glow of screens. Intimacy is replaced by performance. You find it harder to be present, to listen, to connect. The people you love become characters in a story you are only half paying attention to, their voices drowned out by the constant hum of distraction. Society itself begins to fracture under the weight of collective addiction. Public discourse becomes polarized, as algorithms feed you only what you want to hear, reinforcing your biases and deepening your divisions. The marketplace of ideas collapses into echo chambers, where dissent is punished and conformity is rewarded. The search for truth is replaced by the search for affirmation, and the possibility of genuine understanding slips further away. You see the consequences in the way you work, the way you learn, the way you dream. Productivity becomes a measure of your worth, and rest is seen as laziness. You are encouraged to optimize every moment, to turn your hobbies into side hustles, your passions into brands. The line between work and play blurs until every moment is a transaction, every experience a commodity. Even your dreams are colonized by addiction. You find it harder to imagine a future that is not shaped by the logic of consumption, harder to envision a life that is not defined by the pursuit of more. The stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you want become narrower, more predictable, more constrained by the invisible hand of addiction. And yet the urgency to escape grows stronger. You feel it in the restless energy that pulses beneath the surface, the sense that something vital is slipping away. You begin to question the stories you have been told, to wonder if there is another way to live. The trap is invisible, but its effects are everywhere, shaping your thoughts, your feelings, your very sense of possibility. You are not alone in this struggle. The faces you pass on the street, the voices you hear in meetings, the friends you laugh with over dinner, all are caught in the same web. Addiction is not just a personal problem, but a collective crisis, a silent epidemic that shapes the world you share. But what if there is a way out? What if the very forces that keep you trapped can be turned against themselves? What if the urgency you feel is not a sign of weakness, but a call to rebellion? The breakthrough is near, but it will not come easily. It will require a radical shift in perspective, a willingness to question everything you have been taught, a courage to face the unknown. The unseen consequences have brought you to the edge of a precipice. The next step is yours to take. Are you ready to rebel? Are you willing to break free from the invisible chains that bind you? The path to freedom awaits, but it begins with a single defiant act, the refusal to be defined by your cravings, the decision to reclaim your life from the forces that seek to control it. The rebellion is calling. Will you answer? Imagine this. You are standing at the threshold of your own life, the world's noise roaring behind you, the weight of habit pressing at your back. For a moment you hesitate, caught between the comfort of the familiar and the terror of the unknown. The labyrinth of addiction is all you have ever known, its walls built from your own desires, its corridors mapped by the hands of unseen architects. But now something stirs within you, a flicker of defiance, a whisper of possibility. What if you could turn and face the maze, not as a prisoner, but as a rebel? The first act of rebellion is not grand or dramatic. It is a quiet refusal, a subtle shift in perspective. You begin by truly noticing the patterns that govern your days. You see the way your hand reaches for your phone before you are even awake, the way your mind drifts toward distraction at the first sign of discomfort, the way your heart aches for validation in every interaction. You realize that these are not random quirks, but the result of careful design by corporations, by culture, by the very structure of your own mind. But awareness alone is not enough. You must be willing to question the stories you have been told about what it means to be happy, to be successful, to be alive. You must confront the possibility that everything you have been taught to desire is a lie, a mirage that recedes the closer you approach. This is the moment of existential vertigo, when the ground shifts beneath your feet and you glimpse the abyss that lies beneath the surface of your life. History is filled with those who have faced this abyss and chosen to leap. The Stoics of ancient Rome, surrounded by decadence and distraction, practiced voluntary discomfort, fasting, cold baths, silence, not as punishment, but as liberation. They understood that true freedom is not the absence of pain, but the mastery of desire. By choosing discomfort, they reclaimed their agency from the world's seductions. Consider the monks and mystics who withdrew from society, seeking silence in the desert or the mountains. They were not running from the world, but toward a deeper reality, a place where the self could be stripped bare, where the soul could be heard above the din. Their rebellion was radical, to refuse the world's definition of meaning and to seek their own. Even in the modern era, there are those who have broken free. Viktor Frankl, in the darkness of the concentration camps, discovered that meaning could be found even in suffering. His rebellion was not against his captors, but against despair itself. He chose to find purpose where none seemed possible, to assert his freedom in the face of absolute powerlessness. What do these rebels have in common? They understood that the only true freedom is inner freedom, the ability to choose your response, to shape your own desires, to find meaning in the midst of chaos. They saw that addiction is not just a chemical process, but a spiritual battle, a struggle for the soul. So how do you begin your own rebellion? Not by fleeing the world, but by changing your relationship to it. You start by reclaiming your attention, the most precious resource you possess. You learn to sit in silence, to endure boredom, to resist the urge for constant stimulation. You discover that discomfort is not your enemy, but your teacher, a signal that you are alive, that you are capable of more than you have been led to believe. You challenge the narratives that have shaped your desires. You ask yourself, whose dreams am I chasing? Whose approval am I seeking? Whose values have I internalized without question? You begin to disentangle your true self from the web of expectations that has ensnared you. You experiment with abstinence, not as deprivation, but as liberation. You take breaks from technology, from consumption, from the endless pursuit of novelty. You discover the pleasures of presence, the richness of boredom, the depth of your own mind. You learn to savor what is, rather than always reaching for what could be. You seek out community, not the shallow connections of social media, but the deep bonds that come from shared struggle, from honest conversation, from mutual support. You find others who are also rebelling, who are also seeking a different way. Together, you create new rituals, new stories, new ways of being that honor your deepest needs. You cultivate practices that ground you in the present moment. Meditation, journaling, walking in nature, creating art. These are not escapes, but acts of resistance, ways of reclaiming your mind from the forces that seek to colonize it. You discover that meaning is not something you find, but something you create, moment by moment, choice by choice. You learn to embrace uncertainty, to welcome the unknown. You realize that the search for certainty is itself a form of addiction, a way of avoiding the vulnerability that comes with being alive. You accept that life is messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But you also discover that it is beautiful, mysterious, and filled with possibility. The rebellion is not a one-time event, but a lifelong practice. You will stumble, you will fall, you will be tempted to return to the comfort of the maze. But each time you choose awareness over distraction, presence over numbness, meaning over consumption, you strengthen your freedom. You become the architect of your own life, the author of your own story. And as you change, the world around you begins to change as well. Your rebellion becomes contagious, inspiring others to question, to resist, to seek a different way. Together, you begin to imagine new possibilities, a society that values presence over productivity, connection over consumption, meaning over distraction. The path is not easy, and the forces arrayed against you are powerful. But the alternative is to remain a prisoner, to live a life defined by craving, by emptiness, by the endless pursuit of more. The choice is yours, to accept the world as it is, or to rebel against it, to reclaim your freedom, to create a life that is truly your own. The breakthrough is near. The final, most powerful realization awaits, a truth that will shatter your illusions and set you free. Are you ready to see reality as it truly is? Are you prepared to embrace the ultimate truth, no matter how unsettling it may be? The journey is almost complete. The final revelation is within your grasp. Will you take the next step? Imagine this. You are standing in the center of the labyrinth. The walls that once loomed so high now dissolving into mist. The noise of the world fades, replaced by a profound and unsettling silence. For the first time, you are truly alone, not with your distractions, not with your cravings, but with yourself. The rebellion has stripped away the illusions, the stories, the borrowed desires. What remains is raw, unvarnished reality. You feel exposed, vulnerable, and yet strangely powerful. You look into the mirror at the heart of the maze and see not a victim, not a puppet, but a creator. The ultimate truth dawns on you, not as a thunderclap, but as a slow, inexorable rising of the sun. The chains that bound you were never forged by others. They were woven from your own fears, your own longing to escape the burden of freedom. The world offered you distractions, but it was you who reached for them. The world sold you stories, but it was you who believed them. The world built the labyrinth, but it was you who chose to remain inside. This is the paradox at the core of addiction. The very thing you flee, your own freedom, your own responsibility, your own capacity for meaning, is the thing you most desperately seek. You have been running from yourself, from the terror and the beauty of being alive, from the unbearable lightness of being, and yet in your flight, you have circled back to the place you began. The only way out is in. You realize now that addiction is not a curse but a clue, a signal that something essential has been lost. It is the shadow cast by your own longing for wholeness, for connection, for purpose. The hunger you feel is not for pleasure but for meaning. The emptiness you fear is not a void but a space waiting to be filled by your own presence. You remember the words of Viktor Frankl. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The world will always offer you escape, but only you can choose to stay. Only you can choose to face the silence, to listen to the voice that whispers beneath the noise, to create meaning where none is given. The final, most powerful realization is this: you are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not defined by your cravings, your habits, your past. You are the author of your own story, the architect of your own reality. The labyrinth is not a prison, but a path, a journey into the depths of your own soul. You see now that every moment of craving, every pang of emptiness, every restless urge is an invitation, a call to return to yourself, to reclaim your freedom, to create meaning in the midst of chaos. The world will not change, but you can. The noise will not cease, but you can learn to listen beneath it. The cravings will not disappear, but you can learn to see them for what they are. Signals, not commands. Invitations, not imperatives. You understand now that the ultimate freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want, but the ability to choose what you want. To choose presence over distraction, meaning over numbness, connection over isolation. To choose again and again, to return to yourself, to inhabit your own life fully, fiercely, unapologetically. You feel the weight of this truth settle into your bones, a burden and a blessing. There is no one to blame, no one to save you, no one to tell you what your life should mean. The responsibility is yours, and yours alone. But with that responsibility comes a power greater than any addiction, the power to create, to love, to find meaning in the midst of suffering. You remember the words of Jean Paul Sartre, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." The world has shaped you, wounded you, tempted you, but it cannot define you. Only you can do that. Only you can decide what your life will mean. You look around and see others emerging from the mist, their faces illuminated by the same realization. You are not alone. The rebellion is not just personal, but collective, a movement of souls awakening to their own power, their own responsibility, their own capacity for meaning. Together, you begin to imagine a new world, not one free from pain or craving, but one in which those things are transformed, redeemed, made meaningful by the choices you make. You see now that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a practice, a way of being in the world. It is the courage to face yourself, the humility to accept your limitations, the wisdom to create meaning where none is given. It is the willingness to return, again and again, to the center of the labyrinth, to the place where your freedom and your responsibility meet. You feel a strange peace settle over you, not the peace of escape, but the peace of acceptance. You know that the cravings will return, that the world will continue to tempt you, that the struggle will never truly end. But you also know that you are no longer a prisoner. You are a creator, a rebel, a seeker of meaning in a world that offers only distraction. You step out of the labyrinth, not into a world of certainty, but into a world of possibility. The noise is still there. The temptations still beckon, but you are different. You have seen the truth, and it has set you free. You walk into the world with your eyes open, your heart awake, your soul on fire. You are haunted by the memory of the labyrinth, but inspired by the knowledge that you can always return to the center, always reclaim your freedom, always create meaning in the midst of chaos. The journey is not over. It never will be. But you are no longer running. You are no longer hiding. You are alive, awake, and free. And as you move through the world, you carry the ultimate truth with you. A truth that will haunt you, inspire you, and challenge you to live, not as a prisoner of your cravings, but as the creator of your own destiny. What will you do with this freedom? What meaning will you create? The answer is yours, and yours alone. The labyrinth is gone. The world awaits.